What do I want to do? Be a plumber. I want to be a footballer.
Who do you want to play for?
Liverpool.
I don't know, I would like to be a fireman or like a football coach or something like that.
Brighton, on the south coast of England. It has been chosen to pilot the government's new initiative, Every Child Matters. It's an affluent city, but like many others, it has its share of social problems. The early teens are a turbulent period in a young person's life, and those in Brighton face all the pressures that are associated with this particular age group. David Hawker, director of Brighton's new Children's Trust, knows only too well the challenges that teenagers face as they steer their way through the education system.
10 to 14, it's about effective transfer from primary school to secondary school, the larger environment, coming to grips with a more adult world, adolescence, learning to cope with that, lots of activities out of school, homework clubs, and really gaining a more self-confident approach through that developing maturity.
These problems can sometimes lead to exclusion from school.
I hit a teacher on the arse with a ruler.
And I took like my BB gun and I shot someone and they excluded me for a year.
David Hawker, a former teacher, now has the daunting task of pulling together all of Brighton's wide-ranging children's services into one new super department.
I mean, education and social care is one thing. Bring that together with healthcare, and it's a different culture, different set of management arrangements, different sets of expectations and objectives. Put that again with the youth justice and criminal community safety area, and that's another set of expectations again. So it's really a very complex task, but the essence of it is to operate as a whole system approach, to say, well, we're starting from children, families, young people. What are their needs, and how do we make sure that all of the agencies contribute to their needs?
Patcham, on the outskirts of Brighton, is where 14-year-old Daryl lives with his mum and dog Charlie. He is typical of many children who fall through the cracks in the system.
Daryl was a very different child. I knew from the moment he was born, before he could walk or crawl, he could climb. He smashed everything in sight. He didn't care. He set fire to a bunk bed with his brother in it. Used to stamp on his brother's head, really, really nastily. He was a very angry, vicious, violent child. I did have social services involved at one point, and they said, you know, it's the way you've brought him up.
But it was when Daryl went to school that his behaviour became a real problem.
I used to just like be really naughty. None of the teachers used to give me a chance. It's like whenever we used to start work, they always used to work with the kids who knew what they were doing. Like only help the ones, like people who were always behind, they just ignored. I absolutely hated it.
He didn't get on with the teachers. He used to hide underneath the desks, run around, terrorise the other children, terrorise the teachers, you know, because that was Daryl, you know. He couldn't sit down, he couldn't concentrate on anything at any time.
I remember I used to get kicked out all the time. I never used to be in school.
But things have now changed for Daryl. He attends ACE, which specialises in bringing together a number of agencies, including the Community Mental Health and Social Services, to give him the specialist help he needs.
But it doesn't sound like the hitcher actually wants any money, Daryl.
Well, then he's a bigot then, isn't
You can express it in a different way.
he? He's not.
Hey. He's someone that doesn't care about materialistic things, is he?
The professional care that he now receives at ACE is based around a proper assessment of his behavioural problem, including his recently diagnosed ADHD.
You need to listen, OK?
Why?
Right, we're talking about what the two people have in common. The man who picks up the hitcher and the hitcher. Good, okay, so write that down where it says 1A. Same age, roughly.
We worked very hard with him and with various agencies involved with him to review his medication, to look at how we could best help manage the difficult times in his life where medication was perhaps changed, and we put one-to-one support in to allow us to keep him safe and to stop him from becoming aggressive and frustrated during those times.
Okay, so we just
it's not hard though, is it? You can always find a bed in the streets and you can sleep in them.
A range of professionals sharing information is the key to providing the proper care and support for young people like Daryl. And it is this that is at the heart of the work of the Children's Trust.
When you get multi-agency working going well, then there's a huge benefit to the child, because you're talking about professionals working together instead of in isolation, providing a coordinated service instead of fragmented services. And ultimately, the outcomes for the child, particularly if they're a child in need, are much, much better. They actually get a sense of it all works together rather than it's all, a confusion.
But all of this can only work if parents are involved, which can be a little bit daunting for some.
When he went to the Learning Assessment Centre, there was a number of tests that they had to do on him, and they were said, oh look, there's the ADHD and we've got other things coming off of it, what's wrong with him? And so I was like confusion, because I didn't understand all these terms and everything. It was all new to me. So I had to go home and learn about it and sort of like obviously get to know Daryl again.
The Children's Trust Board meetings bring together the heads of agencies responsible for improving the lives of children. Today, David Hawker is presenting his ideas on how best the board can devolve responsibility to local steering groups, without, of course, the board losing strategic control.
Your view around the table was that we should be looking at this in terms of the changing arrangements. We should be looking at it more in terms of local steering groups, because we're talking about a citywide provision which needs to be effectively consistent across the city, and the funding now is effectively not chopped up into core and additionality, but it's all one single pot to provide for the whole range of services.
And I think it may also be worth just thinking through, and officers advising us, as to what some of the likely conflicts might be between steering groups wanting X to happen and indeed deciding on some things, which they are unable to do, and what the board wants to. And, have we got a mechanism for resolving those conflicts?
I absolutely agree. I mean, it could be unwieldy, and whenever you're setting up a big system like this and you're trying to do everything, there's going to be lots of different interests within it. And that's part of the creative tension that inevitably you get in a large system approach. Inevitably you're going to get different voices for representing different interests, and that's right. What you need to do is to make sure that they're then resolved in terms of joint programmes. And below the board level, we've got a whole series of strategic partnership groups where people from those different agencies meet around the table around specific themes: early years, youth, healthy and extended schools, for example. And that's where they thrash out what needs to happen to make things work together effectively. And that's where the different service perspectives come together, their expectations on the table, and they can work out common programmes.
These important local initiatives are starting to happen. Particular help is being given to those youngsters who have real attendance problems at school. Tom is 13 years old. After several exclusions, he rarely turns up at school.
What do I want to do? Be a plumber.
Tom's friend Daniel is also 13. He hasn't been to school for 2 years.
I want to be a footballer.
Who do you want to play for?
Liverpool.
Both Tom and Daniel now have a better chance to achieve their ambitions. They now attend the new Bridge to Attendance scheme, called B2A. It's a multi-agency project developed in response to the closure of the local school. and is one of the Children's Trust's first new initiatives.
Daniel, I think it'd be a good idea if you stood up and did it over there, yeah? I don't want orange, fizzy orange all over here, so...
No, the pure orange juice. Pure, not fizzy.
No, well, could you just go and stand up and drink it over there,
Just do it.
So, just in case you spill it. Right, Tom, how are you doing?
Good, fine. Well, how are you doing? Doing all right, Anna?
I'm doing all right, thank you. Right, now, while you... Tom's... Have you nearly finished, Tom? Right, now, I want you to think about how we can measure the space inside a box. OK, that'll do. Right, so how do we find out the volume of these boxes?
Get a measure up and measure it.
Yeah, now you've done the measuring, so you've now got to do a little bit of a sum. What sum do we do?
I don't know. Oh,
Right.
3, cm3.
Yeah, we've got to we've got to do something to get the answer as centimetre cubes. And I make that the width.
Tom and Daniel now receive a great deal of professional support. Claire Brough is the head of Bridge to Attendance.
How long do
I
you
think
plan this
we
project?
have to keep the Daniel and Tom situation as it is, and even if we have to split the time, so we have I don't know, 3/4 of an hour with Tom and Daniel, and then you have some time with the boys after that.
B2A was born out bearing in mind the Green Paper of Every Child Matters and the idea of multi-agency approach and multi-agency working, joined up thinking, but really it's in response to the closure of the local school, and it's meeting the needs of this community, because this community will always have a need for intensive multi-agency work. The pupils that we do have here, who historically have had attendance, poor attendance, and we knew that those children were going to need extra support. The whole object is to have the revolving door where we can put them into their mainstream school where they can be fully reintegrated.
Well, you've got to take it in turns, so you've got to do it 3 times each, yeah?
Actually, I've got 4 jars. But it's matches.
Yeah, wait.
Got some matches.
One of you've got to light the candle,
All right.
and then very gently you've got to put the jar on top. Can I just show you?
Yeah, I know. I done it yesterday.
I know you did, but Dan didn't. Now, before we do this, I think it might be an idea if you two take a 5-minute break, OK?
Yeah, got no facts.
No, we're just going to get some fresh air. And I just sensed that they were just getting a bit fidgety because their concentration span isn't very great. They did very well to concentrate on that exercise all that time for them because they're not used to doing it. So I think if they have a 5-minute break now and then come back, they will be more prepared to do this in a sensible way.
I was 12 and a half when I first started getting into trouble with teachers. I hit a teacher on the arse with a ruler. I tipped paint on the teacher's head because some of the teachers were annoying. They used to tell me what to do. I don't like being told what to do.
One person who knows Daniel and Tom well is Phil Magson. He used to be assistant principal at their previous school before it closed down. He now works with the B2A team, checking to see the students are okay on a daily basis.